I want to tell you a story about an incredible man. Some would say a courageous, fearless, groundbreaking leader who put fairness, justice, and the desire for peace on our island above all else. His name was Austin Currie. He was a civil rights leader here in Northern Ireland, a Stormont MP. He was a co-founder of the SDLP with John Hume and others, a Fine Gael Seanad, and he is the only person on this island to have served in government north and south. To me, he's Dad. And I'm Emer, and I'm a senator in the Irish Parliament. The best description of Dad that I have seen is that he was a responsible radical. And if you know anything about him prior to today, you'll know that his life and our home was under constant threat for a long time. In fact, he used to say that he never thought that he would see past 30. Well, he lived to 82 to see his 5 kids grow up and 13 grandchildren arrive. And 16 months ago, he died in his sleep, exactly the way that he always said that he wanted to go. He was consistent, he was constant, he was safe. And so are the lessons that he has left me. He was a born leader. His tools were his voice. He was a fantastic natural orator. He could think and debate on his feet. And he was utterly committed to his values of social justice, peace, and reconciliation. And so even though he took risks, and plenty of them, it was those values that grounded him. So at 24 years of age in the 1960s, he walked through those doors into what was the old Stormont regime here as the new nationalist MP for East Tyrone. And he described Stormont as being completely alien to him. The British flags, the Unionist pictures, the Loyalist statues, and the Westminster formalities. This place is magnificent. It's imposing, but back then it symbolized total Unionist control versus nationalist powerlessness. We've come such a long way together, but then nationalists didn't have equal and fair access to voting rights, to decent jobs, or to good housing. A third of the population here were treated as second-class citizens. He wasn't supposed to belong here. He wasn't supposed to succeed here because the system was designed to ensure that. So when he couldn't change the system from inside, he changed it from outside. And now there are pictures of him on the wall here too. So what happened? Well, when a 19-year-old single Protestant woman was allocated a house over 269 Catholic applications, many of whom were families living in intolerable and desperate circumstances, he said, enough is enough. And having repeatedly raised the issue in Parliament, he orchestrated a situation where the Speaker of the chamber, that chamber, would have to throw him out. So he threw down his speaking notes and shouted over to the benches, "All hell will break loose, and by God, I will lead it." And the next day, with support, he occupied the house in question in a non-violent protest. And when he was ejected from the house, he walked out into the media that he ensured was waiting for him. The Caledon squat was the first time that the message about the demand for civil rights in Northern Ireland landed. And it is said that it is the spark that ignited the civil rights campaign here. So very quickly, the first civil rights march was organised with NICRA between Kyle-Island and Dungannon in County Tyrone, with the rallying call that it could appeal to all shades of political and constitutional aspirations. That this was a movement about ending suffering and discrimination and building a just and equal society together peacefully. It was based and inspired by the civil rights campaign in the United States. And it shows us what can be achieved through that combination of radical civil activism and peaceful democratic politics, the essence of responsible radicalism. It's easy to overlook the successes of the civil rights movement before violence engulfed Northern Ireland, before hope was marred by absolute horror. And that's why I wanted to bring it up today. Because in 6 short months, nearly all the demands of the campaign were achieved or achievable. In 4 years, the old Stormont regime fell, and we had our first taste of power sharing with Dad as Minister for Housing. It wasn't to last, unfortunately. We know what happened. But in time and eventually, that agreement became part of the foundations on which a lasting peace was built. And he and others never gave up on that peace. They never compromised on that peace, no matter what the consequences. As a child, I was always afraid that my daddy would not come home. That was my nightmare for a very long time. I miss him all the time. But since he died, I have also felt this surprising, overwhelming gratitude for who he was as a person and what he stood for. It's funny the things that you remember, how my parents worked to keep us safe and the importance of routine. So Daddy insisted that I sing him a song every morning, and we'd say our prayers together on the way to school. I didn't know until years later that he checked under the car for explosives. And when he did come home, for a long time, I wondered why he always insisted on putting his coat and his briefcase away. But it's because he had to take off his gun. My parents always tried to make our life as normal as possible. He was my role model as a politician and as a parent. He showed me the importance of stepping up, of speaking out, of serving your community, serving your country, and not letting an injustice go unchallenged, of not letting bullies change you or stop you. And as I forged my own path in politics, I look for ways based on that responsible radicalism to build and help shape this island's future. Thank you.